Good evening and welcome to Thai PBS World. A major campaign message of the opposition parties in the March election was amending the Constitution. They believe, and they also want the public to believe, that everything that is wrong with Thailand today goes back to the Constitution. And now they can claim that they have made a small step toward fulfilling their election promise. But they also realize that the road ahead is long and tough. At least for the time being, just getting members of parliament from both sides of the aisle to talk about amending the Constitution is good enough for the opposition. Substance, or what to amend in the Constitution, can come later. The House of Representatives is in the process of setting up a bipartisan committee to study changes to the Constitution. Its task, fundamentally, is to study mechanisms or the process for constitutional amendment, but not what specific contents should be up for changes. And if the opposition has its way, a debate on how the committee will be set up should be on the agenda of the House next week. But even before the committee takes shape, government and opposition politicians have already started clashing over who should head it. Both sides have come forth with their own potential candidates. Members of the Democrat Party, a key component in the Prayut coalition, have declared their support for former Prime Minister Apisit Vejjajiva for the chairmanship. Apisit, who resigned as the leader and an MP of the Democrat Party in the aftermath of his crushing defeat in the March election, is known as a staunch opponent of the current constitution. Meanwhile, Palang Pracharat, the core party of the coalition, also appears to have its own candidate. Suchat Tancharoen, a deputy House Speaker, admitted that members of the party want to nominate him to lead the charter change panel. And of course, Pheu Thai, the main opposition party, is also throwing its hat into the ring. Some of the party members are reported to have suggested that Pokin Polakun, a strategist and legal expert of the party, should be its candidate. So before they get down to the nitty-gritty of the constitutional amendment, it looks like these political parties will be preoccupied with their fight for chairmanship of the committee. But that is only the beginning of a long process. For the time being, both sides have avoided touching on specifics of the constitutional amendment. They apparently realize that before they can get down to talking about what in the Constitution that should be thrown out and what should be retained, they first need to have a common ground. But so far, it doesn't look like they are seeing eye to eye on most things. And more importantly, according to opinion polls, amending the Constitution is not yet something that the public think is a priority. Many even fear that it would further polarize the society. It's obvious that the opposition parties have been showing much more eagerness than their colleagues on the other side of the fence in pushing for charter changes. Key members of the 7 opposition political parties have been hitting the road to solicit support for their move. Their message is clear and simple. The current constitution is nothing more than an instrument to prolong the influence of the military in politics. What the opposition wants to see is a repeat of the broad-based civic movement that was instrumental in pushing through what is known as Thailand's most democratic constitution in 1997. But despite their efforts, the opposition so far has failed to excite the public at large with their message. But at the end of the day, the biggest hurdle is none other than the one that the opposition very much wants to get rid of. That is the Senate. The current batch of senators were handpicked by the now defunct National Council for Peace and Order, led by Prime Minister Prayut. And under the provisional clause of the Constitution, senators have a significant say in choosing the Prime Minister and oversight power. And it's no secret that amending the sections in the Constitution governing the role of senators is the main objective of the opposition parties. Removing the clause that constitutionally legitimizes all the executive orders issued by the military junta is also another goal. But Getting from talking about constitutional amendment to pushing through an amendment promises to be an uphill task. Even if they manage to eventually come up with enough votes among members of the House of Representatives to support a constitutional amendment, they still have to win over the Senate. For any constitutional amendment to pass, a majority vote of both houses is required, which is already a major challenge given the fact that senators will also be voting. And worse still, at least 1/3 of the 250 senators must vote in favor for the proposed amendment to pass, something many people believe is unlikely to happen. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, meanwhile, has been trying to distance himself from the issue. However, as leader of the military junta that orchestrated the drafting of the Constitution, he is undoubtedly one of its staunchest supporters. He said amending the Constitution is a business to be undertaken by the Parliament. I have nothing to do with it, he insisted. The Prayut government has listed amending the Constitution one of its policy priorities, but it's obvious that Prayut himself is no hurry to get the process moving. Prime Minister Prayut apparently believes that despite all the noise made by the opposition politicians about amending the Constitution, at the end of the day, he will be in control of its final outcome. And that's all for Thai PBS World Tonight. Thank you for watching.